We got Ohio State, 3.5-point favorites going on the road now to South Bend, Indiana, and playing Notre Dame. Sam Hartman, I said at the top of this live show, he's grown out the flow for a game like this, got the beard for a game like this, came to Notre Dame for a game like this, polish up the Golden Dome a little bit for this kind of game. Touchdown Jesus will be looking immaculate, overlooking Notre Dame Stadium. Ohio State now, it's kind of that litmus test for them. We've talked a lot about the quarterback battle, and now Kyle McCord's the guy, and they dropped 63 on the Western Kentucky Fighting Nick Breaks. But even so, now this is the test for them. We'll break it down here in a second. Make sure you're subscribed to this On3 YouTube channel. We talk college football and only college football every single day. We love this sport with every fiber of our being, just like you. Fall Saturdays, man, nothing better. If every Saturday were a fall Saturday, every single issue in the world would more or less be resolved. My humble opinion. Now, make sure you're locked in also on the socials, at JD Piquel on Twitter or X, whatever you call that now, and on Instagram, at JD Piquel. We do a little Q&A over there. We give you out our gambling picks over there. So be locked in on both those channels to keep up with the entirety of the content that we do here on the Hard Count. All right, enough of that. Like I was saying, Ohio State, first real test, man. The standard is the standard. You want to play for the college football playoff? You want to be that team that returns the Buckeyes back to former glory? Starts with a game like this. It's not a Big Ten game, but even so, the implications of this on what they want to do later in the season are massive. Same thing for Notre Dame now. The thing with them is this is their proving ground. Marcus Freeman didn't have to go get Sam Hartman out of the portal. He had Tyler Buckner, his starting quarterback from a season ago, coming back, and he says, nope. What do we do here? What's written on the t-shirt here? What's our mantra now with me as the head coach? We challenge everything. We're challenging who our quarterback's going to be. Sam Hartman, get you a jersey, get you a helmet. May the best man win. Sam Hartman, of course, did end up winning the job, and it feels like a very different Notre Dame team now. There's a reason why some people are looking at that number and saying, Ohio State minus 3.5? Really? Okay. Notre Dame's at home, but okay. It is what it is. If Notre Dame wins this football game, that would legitimize all of the hype, all of the talk around Sam Hartman, around Marcus Freeman, and what they've done to this point in the year. Their best win right now, if you're Notre Dame, is NC State. No knock on NC State, but they're not Ohio State. So we'll find out a lot about both teams in this one. Ohio State now breaking a new quarterback. They've broken him in now for a few weeks. How does he look in this game? I want to go back to Sam Hartman here really quick, though, because the matchup for me is Sam Hartman in this cat and mouse game against Ohio State's defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles, Cornell grad, so shout out Jim Knowles. But this is kind of a twofold concept I want to walk through here. How much pressure does Jim Knowles allow the Ohio State defense to put on Sam Hartman? And when I say pressure, like I said, twofold. The first is obviously like the literal pressure. Like, do we get to the quarterback? Do we force him to be uncomfortable? Do we collapse that pocket? All those great cliches. We dial it up. Jim Knowles is known as like the mad hatter, the mad scientist, rather, of defensive football at the collegiate level. He's going to have something cooked up for this game. It's confusing. It's counterintuitive. It's hard to look at if you're a quarterback. It's a rule breaker. Do they get to confuse Sam Hartman and put pressure on him throwing the football? Now, the second part of that, the second layer of that pressure, do they put pressure on Sam Hartman to be the guy to win the football game? Do they take away the balance that Notre Dame has thrived on to this point in the year? Audric Estime, bad man running the football. He's got shoulder pads, not sure what size they are, but he uses every single square inch of those bad boys when he gets downhill. Tough to tackle. Has looked great to this point in the year. If they can limit his effectiveness in this football game and put it on Sam Hartman, yes, you put it on Sam Hartman to be the guy to beat you, which is kind of a conversation in itself, but even more so, that pressure then shifts to that wide receiver room at Notre Dame. And they've looked good so far. Tobias Merriweather, like what you saw from him. Jaden Greathouse, he's looked Greathouse. I mean, he's looked great to this point in the year, true to his last name. You want to make those guys prove that they are for real. Because it's one thing to do against NC State, one thing to do it against Navy. Can you do it against the secondary at Ohio State? And now, to be fair, for Ohio State, they've had their own question marks. There's a reason they went to the portal the way they did. This will be a really great test for them But Ohio State, they want to make Notre Dame as unbalanced as possible. Now, here's something to watch for in this game. I just have a funny feeling by the way that Notre Dame operates and by the spot that they're in, home crowd behind them. They've been a team that's been fairly physical up front. Joe Alt's going to make millions and millions of dollars being an offensive lineman in the NFL and what they have up front. They like it a lot. I would not be surprised in the slightest if in that first quarter we see Sam Hartman and that luscious locks and beautiful beard drop back to pass and they throw to open up the run game. Because I think Ohio State is expecting them to run the football. I think Marcus Freeman knows that. I think Sam Hartman knows that. I would not be surprised if we saw them in that first and second drive kind of spread it out, go shotgun, throw it around the yard, soften up that defense, kind of make them mellow out just a little bit, and then they go to running the football. Don't be surprised if they kind of zig when we expect them to zag in this football game. So Ohio State and the pressure they create on that will be crucial in how that whole thing shakes out. Now, on the flip side, the quarterback storylines are not in short supply in this football game. Kyle McCord is now the guy. He's no longer driving the rental Ferrari. He is the proud owner of this Ohio State Ferrari offense and operated how we expected him to, operated how we expect this whole thing to look against Western Kentucky. Scored 63 points. Marvin Harrison Jr., I say it on this show a lot. If you're new, he's the alien that the government has been hiding from us, just in plain sight, wearing the number 18 jersey for Ohio State, and he has been a dog all season long for them. I expect him to be a dog all season long for them. Again, talk about making millions of dollars in the NFL. Marvin Harrison Jr., probably a top 5, top 3 pick. Emeka Egbuka also looked good against Western Kentucky, caught 2 touchdowns, I believe, of the 3 that Kyle McCord threw. Can you mix up the picture for Kyle McCord if you're Notre Dame? Because yes, Kyle McCord's waited his turn at Ohio State, looked great last week at home for Ohio State, but that was at home. This is now a very different spot for him. This will be the most impactful start of his entire career, his short starting career at Ohio State. And Marcus Freeman and Al Golden, I promise you, the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame, that is, Al Golden, and Marcus Freeman obviously being a defensive mind, having previously been a defensive coordinator at Cincinnati, they're going to get on their Breaking Bad this week in the lab. They're going to be like Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. They're going to kind of cook something up for Kyle McCord and try to confuse him as much as possible and give him some tricky pictures to look at early in this football game. Because I promise you, it'll be loud. It'll be electric environment. 7:30 Eastern NBC. Like it'll be rocking now. For Kyle McCord, having the steady hands in this one, being poised, will be crucial. Marcus Freeman and Al Golden will do all that they possibly can to make it confusing for him in this spot. Now, when it gets confusing, here's something to watch for. I promise you there will be a portion of this game where Brian Hartline, Ryan Day try and get their quarterback into a rhythm and ease him into this game. And what does that typically look like? It looks like quick game. It looks like catch, rock, throw. Catch, 3-step drop, out to Marvin Harrison Jr. Catch, hitch to Cade Stover. Whatever it looks like, it'll be a version of that. And so the interesting thing here will be, one, can Notre Dame get him out of rhythm there and disrupt that quick game kind of phase so he doesn't get comfortable? That's the first part. The potentially more impactful part of that, and something that will stretch throughout this game, is Notre Dame playing in space against the Ohio State playmakers. We've talked about him already in this breakdown. Marvin Harrison Jr., you don't want to see him one-on-one in the alley. Like, that's not something you want to do if you're a DB. You catch him on the sideline, and it's like, man, we're in the alleyway now. It's hard to tackle him one-on-one. Same thing with Emeka Egbuka. Just slippery. There's a reason why these wide receivers are as highly touted as they are when they go to Ohio State and why they do what they do when they get to Ohio State. So what they want to do is they want to funnel everything back to the middle of that defense. Hold on for dear life, push them back towards the cavalry, and just have a swarm of fighting Irish defenders. That's going to be key for them. But Ohio State, like I was just saying, they want to get on the perimeter. They want to get out and break contain. They love outside zone at Ohio State. Trevion Henderson scored on an outside zone touchdown run for against Western Kentucky, rather. Like that is kind of the game they want to play. Get out in space, get out in the open, and let our horses run. Can Notre Dame solidify the edges of that defense and kind of put the walls up and force them back into the middle? That will be crucial to being able to limit the explosive nature and the explosive potential of what this offense has for Ohio State, because that's kind of the trick now. Anytime you try and be confusing as a defense, typically There's a little bit of real estate behind you if you're going to dial up a pressure, if you're going to be confusing with how you rock and roll the safeties. There is a higher percentage chance of the quarterback to discover what you're not doing well. So keep an eye on that. Very, very important for Notre Dame to be sound on the back end and to tackle in space. Really all game long, but especially early, so Kyle McCord does not get into a rhythm. Interesting part of this whole game for me. Going into the season, the way we talked about the Ohio State offense, with how explosive we thought they could be, how potent we thought they could be, how balanced we thought they could be, that's kind of the situation we're facing now when we talk about the Notre Dame offense. Like Sam Hartman has got that whole thing rolling. And the way that you felt about Notre Dame going into this game last year is very different than how you feel about them going into this game this year. Like if it becomes a track meet, I think Notre Dame has got their shoes tied tight and their spikes locked in. They say, okay, how far are we going? What kind of race you want to run? If it's a track meet, we like our odds in this one too. And the concern for me, there's no shortage of weapons for Ohio State, but the consistency from them. I know we talked about it now being the ownership of the offense for Kyle McCord, but still didn't look great against Indiana. He looked good the next game for them. I believe it was against another opponent that wasn't Power 5, but it was a Group of 5 opponent, and they're escaping me at the moment in terms of who it was, but like they haven't looked phenomenal to this point in the year outside of that Western Kentucky game. So for Ohio State, the inconsistency makes me a touch nervous. And if there's any inconsistency at all for them in this game, I think Notre Dame will take advantage of it, especially with it being in South Bend. So I'll say this again. I think this is a new Notre Dame team under Marcus Freeman. I think the brand that the Fighting Irish football operation is right now is very different than what we've seen in the past. This is not your Rudy's Notre Dame football team. The matchup that could change the complexion of this game is Cam Hart, the cornerback for Notre Dame, on Marvin Harrison Jr. If Cam Hart can do enough, and I do not mean stop. He's not going to stop Marvin Harrison Jr. If he can do enough to where Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't just take over this game, I think Notre Dame's going to win. I think it's close. A lot of close football games this Saturday. But I think Notre Dame not only wins, or not only covers. That was going to be a cool line. Oh, well. I think Notre Dame not only covers, but wins this football game. Final score, Notre Dame 33, Ohio State 30. Marcus Freeman and his approach to challenge everything pays dividends in this football game because Sam Hartman will have a very good game. We'll have a stat line somewhere around 270 to 300, probably throw right around 2 to 3 touchdowns. And the balance they bring and the new aggressive nature of this offense is what allows them to win a game like this that they could not have won a year ago without Sam Hartman on this roster. Notre Dame legitimizes the hype, proves they are for real, and they beat Ohio State and make a statement to the entire college football landscape on Saturday night. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.